Hey, ladies and gentlemen, possibility seekers across the globe. I'm really excited, super excited, pumped to be talking to Kristal Murren from Bossy Girl Leadership. Kristal, how are you?
I am doing fantastic today, Rob. How are you?
I'm awesome. Now, you're based in Pennsylvania, true or not true?
That is true.
That is true. Are you freezing there? Is it really cold where you are?
It is so cold. Don't come to Pennsylvania right now. We are buried in snow.
Oh my God. Well, I got to tell you, it's about, in your Fahrenheit temperature in Australia right now, where I'm speaking to you, it's about 90.
Rob,
It's about 90. So we'll
that
be
is a
melting all your
really,
snow.
that is a really mean thing to tell me as we get started.
I know, but I wanted to be bossy first. So I'm just putting it out there, which is good if you're water skiing, but not snow skiing. So we do feel for you guys in the States at the moment as we're recording this. Hey, I want to start off with something. This is the It's All Possible podcast. What does the word possibility mean to you, Kristal?
I have to tell you, Rob, when I hear the word possibility, I just think, and it's probably a surprise to hear what I might think about this, but I think of leadership. And the reason I think of leadership is I truly believe in today's day and age, the answer to possibility is leaders. And leaders have the capability of achieving the impossible. My goodness, my words. And they also have the ability to inspire each one of us to be the best we can possibly be. So to me, that's possibility. Everything that we can become and everything that we seek to achieve.
I love that. That's exactly right. And that's really it's a fundamental difference between leadership and management, isn't it? It's that I think Steve Jobs said it really well. He said, management's about getting people to do stuff they don't want to do. And leadership's about convincing people to do things they didn't know they could do.
Exactly.
I really love that differentiation, which you really describe well. Hey, so when you were growing up, who were your mentors? Who did you look up to? Who were kind of the leaders in your life that you looked up to when you were growing up?
So when I was growing up, and it might sound a bit cliche, but my mom was my hero. My mom went back to school when I was in high school, so she could afford to put me through college. I was the first person in my family to graduate with a bachelor's degree, and now I have a master's degree. She put everything on the line for her kids and would do anything to make sure that we had everything she never did. She is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever known on the planet.
I can't tell you how many men and women leaders, Kristal, I asked that question too, and the answer is their mother. It's quite amazing in the role that I have. It's kind of a privilege to ask that question and get the responses, and it's really a family member. It's typically,
Yes.
but the mother, the female who's outside of the family, who's put the effort in, gone back to school, or sacrificed so much. It's just incredible. How many mothers and women do so much great work. And I got to say, on the behalf of all fathers here, we're pretty much slackers. No, I'm kidding. We're going to do some more PR, right? You fathers that are out there, we're getting no recognition. The mothers are doing it. Now, Kristal, I completely agree. It's a really good one, isn't it? And we can't recognize that. So I love that. What about nowadays? Now, you're a mother yourself too, so I'm really interested in that perspective. But what about nowadays? Who are your kind of leaders, and who do you look up to now? Who's aspirational for you?
Well, Rob, I can't begin to tell you how important it is, everything that you just said. So, my role model growing up was my mom. But what's amazing is the role model that I have now, his name is John, and he actually taught me why my mom is my role model. So, John taught me what love was. And what I mean by that is love the choice, love the action. John taught me what it meant to sacrifice your own needs for the needs of somebody else. And we've walked through this journey. I've worked with John for 15 years. And when he hired me, obviously he was my boss. When I left my last place of employment, I was his boss. And now he's retired and he works with me at BGL Strategies.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
it's the selflessness, and it's what creates followers that actually want to do the mission and accomplish the impossible, achieve the possibilities. It's
Yeah.
because of that service. And whether it be John or my mom, we all have the ability to make the choice to lead people where they never dreamed possible.
I love that. I'm going to come back to that servant side and servant-based leadership, because I know it's something that I'm kind of passionate about, and I know you are too.
Yes.
But yeah, let's jump into this interesting part though. The name Bossy Girl, which frankly I love, and I love the branding and all the rest of the stuff, which hopefully people will give some people some direction to find out more about you later on. Where did the
Sure.
name Bossy Girl come from? What started all that?
So whenever I started my own business, it was after a very tragic car accident where I had a traumatic brain injury. And I was consistently told to just go with the flow and be a little bit more quiet and a little bit more polite. And when it became time to choose the name for my company, I knew that I had to choose something that would rise above the noise. So everybody has, such and such leadership or such and such strategies or such and such consulting. And I thought, that's not me. I'm a little bit more sparkly, a little bit more on the edge, right? And my company name needs to represent that. So I chose the Bossy Girl. And it's funny because I have gotten endless pushback on that name. People saying, Kristal, you can't do this. It's just going to fail because everyone's going to hate this. It's terrible. Even my own dad, Rob, he won't even say the name. He's like,
Really?
yes, this is ridiculous. And I said to him, but you know what? This is the thing. People might giggle when they hear Bossy Girl, but they never ever forget me.
No,
And what
correct.
happens is we've built a tribe. And if people aren't loving the whole Bossy Girl thing, then probably this isn't the greatest place for them, because we live on the edge a bit. We're very bold and we go all in.
Yeah, so you could have gone with Bold Girl, but I like the Bossy Girl side of it, because it just shows that kind of spark, tenacity, and I think that when you meet you just get it, right? And people would obviously on this podcast would just get it. If you call yourself Bossy Girl Leadership and you're like, yeah, hi, we don't really know where we're going and we don't really have much of a direction, but we kind of want to be bossy one day, it just wouldn't work, right? It's just not. It is you, but so. The name that came up because I think people used to say to you, you're so bossy, right? And you're like, thanks for the name, right?
Absolutely. And what's happening is as we move this forward, people are starting to recognize that there's power in this. So
Yeah.
before, when people would say, oh, Kristal, you're so bossy, I would be a little bit hurt or offended or feel a bit of shame, if you will. Now I'm like, oh, that's cute. You're
Yeah.
right. I am bossy. And it's fantastic because
Yeah.
for me, bossy really means courage in action, willing to just do what you believe in and follow your purpose.
So I'm fascinated with this because the last couple of guests, you might have noticed, I've had some fantastic female leaders on this
Yes.
podcast. I sent to a lot of them actually. I don't know what I'm attracting here, but Kate Bushell's an ex-client of mine. It's great, and she started Girls of Impact. She was on our last session, and before that, I had a really great senior leader in Claire Burke, who's been in IT for a long time. It's just a fundamentally great leader. But what I'm interested in is, you've got a Bossy Girl movement. So rather than this isn't just a logo for you. This isn't just branding. Why do you think there's a movement is needed?
So it is not just a logo. This is truly a movement. This is women learning to own their power. And what that really means is owning what's inside of us and finding the skills to be assertive. And it's interesting because when people hear bossy, they think, oh no, pushy, aggressive. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The values that I aspire to, the one that I aspire to the most is actually love and building trust. But I'm also very, very assertive and I know how to share information in a way that you can receive it and get what you need with complete and total honesty. So what this is learning to own your power, but also gaining the skills to be assertive, because right now more than ever women are leaving the workplace due to the pandemic and many other things. And what is also happening is when they get into the workplace, if women aren't welcomed, they leave. So, this movement actually gives women the skills as executives to walk into the workplace with confidence and know how to express themselves with assertiveness.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's something Kate mentioned to me too. She said it's important for women to show up, show up with the power. But and where do you see authenticity fitting into this? Because I just think authenticity is just so important to be authentic. What else can you be? But I think I'm in the minority, and maybe you are too. But where do you see authenticity fitting into the movement?
It's funny that you actually asked me that, because I am in a process of writing a book about the values of Bossy. And the very first one is authenticity. And what's really interesting about that is I believe we all want to be authentic. I really do. But I actually also believe that many of us don't even know how to get there. What does authenticity mean for us? And especially as women, so often we have been taught, and the culture has brought us up to believe that there's a certain standard that we have to meet or something that we have to be.
Yeah.
And we've played that role for so long that we don't even know what is authentically us. So, finding that and digging into that and being okay with whatever your authentic self is absolutely not only what the Bossy Girl movement is about, but it's also what leadership is about. Because if you don't know who you are, you're never going to be able to help somebody find out who they are.
Yeah, I agree completely with this, and I cannot look at it from a women's perspective because I'm not one, but I get it. And you just recently you just prompted something. A leader was telling me that they got in a lift with their senior leader. The senior leader is actually a female leader, and she got in. She may be known as a bit of a bossy girl and tenacious and out there. And someone got
Yeah.
in there and had these lovely flowers. And she and she just got in the lift, and she said to this other person, "Oh my God, there's such lovely flowers. What's the occasion you got going on?" And they had a really good chat. And people got out of the lift going, "Oh my God, did you hear what so-and-so said? What was she trying to do? She was being authentic. She was, she was just being her. But she was able to
Yes.
switch between business mode, personal mode. And I thought that's a skill to do that. But the team, I've got to say, mostly men who were saying this were like, hang on, was she, God, wow, that was amazing how she flipped. What politically thing was she doing? No, I'm like, guys, she was just being, she was just having an authentic conversation with her, and she just happened to love the flowers and was interested what the person was doing. And then she's back onto transactions and about the business. It was completely okay. She's the same
Yes.
freaking person, guys. You don't have to
Yes.
keep compartmentalizing people. It's crazy.
Absolutely. That is a perfect story, Rob. And it's as you look at how people interact in the workplace, when you see leaders who are truly effective, they are doing that. They are authentically themselves, and they're building connection and relationships that last, because the best leaders know that that's how you inspire action. So
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect example.
I don't know if you've seen the work by John Maxwell, but John Maxwell's got
I have.
the 5 stages, so levels of leadership,
Mm,
and there's level 1 to 5. Now people mistake that as thinking I got to go from level 1, level 2, level 3, level 5 to 5, right? And that's kind of correct over a career, but actually the real deep diving into it is that they are levels of conversation. Like level 2 is building relationships. Level
yes.
3 is I'm building productivity inside the organization. That's why you follow me. Level 4 is you
Yes.
follow me because I'm making you a better leader, right? But his
Mhm.
point is that sometimes in an organization, you need to have a level 2 conversation. Even though you might be a level 4 leader, you need to drop down to level 2 and about relationships. Other times it's a level 1, which is, hey, I'm kind of in charge here and I need this done. just that's how it is, right?
Yes.
You need to have a level
Oh,
1 conversation. So it doesn't mean that you're a level 1 leader. It means that you go up, but sometimes you need to have different levels with different people. And I think, and that's authentic. I love the
Yes.
framework of that, because I don't know if that might be helpful for your movement, but that might be easier for some people to digest that rather than thinking, oh, someone's changing or they're switching, the way their brain works.
Oh my word. And Rob, leadership is incredibly situational. So we as leaders need to be able to travel to where our people are, because when we join them there, then we can move them to where we're going next, right? So if we're talking to somebody who, say, is brand new in the organization, we are going to have to be very specific. We're not going to be talking about high level tasks or giving them a lot of freedom. We're going to help them succeed and give them the specifics that they need. That doesn't change who you are as a leader or how effective you are as a leader. If you have the max ability of going to a level 4 and you're an effective leader and you're there, awesome, that's great. And you will probably get to use those skills at some point in the future with that person, but maybe not right now. And
Fantastic. Yeah.
I think
I
that
love it.
even I love the pyramids. So even if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So if you have somebody, the foundation of Maslow's hierarchy is food, shelter, your basic necessities. If somebody loses those things, then you need to know you're going to have to communicate with them at that level. You can't go for self-actualization. So all of these things really, really matter.
I love it. I love a couple of things you said there. There was some pure gold in there. One is, I like someone who invents their own words. And you're a bossy girl, because I love maxability. I've never heard of that before. Where did you come up with that one? Come on. I think we invented that here, right? Let's just say that we're claiming that one, maxability. That's good. So I love that. But I love the way about where as leaders, we're travelers. I think that's fantastic. And
We
I
have
really
to
think
be.
that is so good. We travel to where our people are, is what you said. And I think that's really gold. So make sure you put that in the book, right? Because that's a good one. And maxability. And just make sure that I told you that you should have put that in the book, right? So
You got it. You got it.
let's talk about servant-based leadership. We touched a little bit on that earlier on, and I'm hearing more of it, which is a good thing, right? But what is servant-based leadership for you, and why is it important?
Yes. So really, servant leadership is the basis of everything that we do at Bossy Girl Leadership. And we also have BGL strategies, who we all do high level, long-term leadership development work.
Now, is
And
that named for your dad? That's for your dad, isn't it? So he can say,
that's
yeah, hi, Kristal, she's got BGL strategies.
exactly, Rob. And it's for government and it's for hospitals, because it's much more appropriate and they can swallow it. Once they meet me, the Bossy Girl is completely acceptable. But up front, BGL strategies is sometimes a little bit more palatable for them.
Yeah, I get it.
So yes, we have both. And everything we do is based in servant leadership. And the reason for that is because we believe that leadership is about achieving a mission. And the thing about that is, you can only achieve a mission with other people. You can achieve some things by yourself, but you will not move mountains. So if you want to gain followers and be a leader that others want to follow, you have to be willing to meet their needs. And it's interesting because a lot of people have a real problem with the term servant leadership. I'm not anybody's servant. I'm not a doormat. I'm not all warm and fuzzy. And it isn't that. Servant leadership is giving people what they need. And honestly, sometimes that's a good kick in the pants, right? So it's giving people what they need, being willing to sacrifice, it being all about you because you're all about your people. And when you do that, and you can do that effectively, and like you said already, Rob, when you meet people where they are, then you can take them where you want them to go. So you build influence with this. And it really is the only way, in my opinion, to have long-term success as a leader.
Yeah, I really like it. And I'm really happy that we're starting to see the movement and people asking the questions. Even if people ask the question, what is servant-based leadership and how do I do it? or even if they challenge it and say, it's not for me because I've been given, I don't want to be a doormat as a leader. Well, great. Let's just talk about what that is and what it's not as well. I think
Yes.
you really explained that brilliantly. That you're doing a lot of work across, you work across various organizations and government enterprises and private and the like. What do you see missing that, so people who are in leadership roles are sometimes not leading? But they're in the roles and they want to get better. What are some of the things you see that people who are in leadership roles aren't doing well?
So if you look at the top 3 things that leaders are missing whenever they're actually leading in the workplace, the first one is leadership. The second one is leadership. And the third one is leadership. Okay.
It's true. I'm laughing because it's true, but take us through that.
And what is really difficult about this is that people that are put in leadership roles, oftentimes it's not because they are not leading because they're not good people. They're not leading because they haven't been equipped with the tools to do it. Leadership is a highly advanced skill. It takes hard work. It takes practice. I fail every single day. I'm a mom of a 2-year-old. There are many days that I am not the leader that I need to be, right?
That's right. And I've seen your chairman, your 2-year-old chairman of BGL Enterprises.
Yes.
She is very assertive. She's very assertive as well. So
she is very assertive. She will be a bossy girl. There is no question about it. But whenever you look at leadership, and I'm being a little bit silly, right? Because we all have the ability to lead. And I believe that really the values and the principles that I've created around the bossy movement are what those are. So those values are authenticity, courage, grace, and love. And the bossy movement is really a leadership movement that's about building trust and never quits. Yeah. And that's what leadership is. So it really is about having the courage, choosing love, providing grace, allowing people to fail. And like you said earlier, Rob, you have to know who you are so that you can travel to where they need you to be. That's what's lacking. And that's what we're trying to build because we believe that it can change the world.
And I 100% agree with you. It's a skill. So that's the first thing I say to people is, and that's why I love working with young leaders, and I run some high potential programs, and I love doing that because if I can get in early, and because it is a skill, it's a skill we're continuously developing, and it's a never-ending skill as well. There's no end to it, right? It's a journey. It's a true journey. It's a journey of enlightenment in many ways. It might sound cliche, but basically it is. You're kind of always learning along the way. People go, oh, that's a natural born leader. Okay, that is just not true, right? There's not people who, it might be their upbringing. There might be some things that help them along the way, but I've yet to see a doctor, in the maternity ward go, oh my God, thank God, 3 more leaders delivered today. It just doesn't happen.
I love that. I love that.
Skill. It's a skill building. So I think that's such a true comment that they're not leading because they sometimes haven't been taught how to lead. They're very good technicians or good at what they do. So they got promoted, which is fantastic. But the interesting thing, I don't know whether you found this or not, but I was talking to on an earlier podcast with Chris Godey, who heads up the corporate solutions for John Maxwell's enterprise groups at the big end of town. And he was telling me, he said to me that like 70% of the engagements they get into, they go to roll a program out and the most senior leaders go, that's fantastic. Our people are going to really enjoy this.
Yes, I know what's coming next, Rob.
And then Chris goes, hang on a second. I think we've kind of missed the point here. We're big believers in model the way. So you guys are going first.
Yes.
What are we going first for? We're already leaders.
Oh
that is the response. Right. So it's a really interesting. I don't know whether you've come across that with more seasoned leaders, but a lot of times they think because they're leaders already, they don't need to do leadership.
Yes. Yes. And Rob, I have to tell you, I love this story. I have a man that I was coaching, and he was given to me because his boss saw him as an issue, a problem, right? And I sat down with him and he looked at me and he said, Kristal, you don't understand. And I said, what don't I understand? And he said, I am one of those born leaders, like Abraham Lincoln. I just came into this world and I knew how to lead. And I said, oh, well, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? And he said, yes. My mom told me from the time I was born that I was a leader. I said, that's awesome. Can you tell me who's following you? And that was kind of the end of the conversation, right? Because if people aren't following us, then we are not leading. And it does take practice and love and making hard choices that we are going to start with ourselves and look in the mirror.
The line, there's a line there that I heard, it was used that said that, if you're leading from the front, but no one's following, you're just taking a nice walk.
Oh my word. I love that. Yes. It's so true.
What your guy was obviously doing was like, I'm leading from the front. I'm an absolute leader. And I realize no one's following me, but it's clearly that's their problem. And they're obviously really stupid because I'm clearly a born leader. And, I've got the reference from my mother who's known me for a long time and she's clearly supporting me. Oh my God.
That's right.
There's so much patience in that coaching call. Like my call might have been a little bit shorter, but yeah. Well done.
It's so much fun to really learn where people are coming from. And if you ask the right questions, and that's a huge part of what we do as leaders, we ask really good questions and then we listen. Because really telling people the answers doesn't help them to change behavior.
It certainly does. It does. No, you're absolutely right. They've got to realize it themselves. They've got to realize it themselves. They've got to realize that, and they really are. And they've got to own it as well, because if they don't realize it themselves, they're just being told. And if you tell them, it actually puts the accountability on you as the coach. If you say it and everything that they say, and if it doesn't work out, then that's your fault, not their fault. And that's not really the role you're into. Hey, look, I'm interested in talking about young leaders, especially young female leaders. So what sort of advice would you have to some young female leaders who've got their first leadership role in an organization, or, they've decided to do a startup or make their side hustle a real thing now, and they've got to lead, and they're young female leaders. What's a couple of words of advice you give, given your experiences?
I think this is just the most fantastic question, Rob. And what I would say is the very first thing that we need to start with and recognize is that women have an impact on the workplace and on the workforce much later in life, typically not until their mid 30s or early 40s, because of the confidence that they are not necessarily taught to have in the workplace. So my question for young ladies, and I ask so many of them this, and it seems cliche, but the question is, why not you? Who can do it better? Right? You are fantastic. You are brilliant. Start with telling yourself, why not you? And then the second piece of that I really think is important is women have natural gifts. And the truth is, men and women are built differently. I love men and I love women. Both are fantastic. But women have a natural ability that sometimes we don't maximize. And what I would say is our ability to listen, to empathize, build relationships and connection is a huge strength. Use it. Build relationships, build connection, and you will achieve the mission.
I think that's wonderful advice. And having, obviously coming at it from the male perspective, I'm involved with a few charities and around mental health and depression and prevention of suicide, which is terribly high in men, because men don't connect and men don't go and see their doctor.
That's right.
And men don't reach out. And so all the things you gave as women, which is why I honestly believe women make natural, if I can use the word natural, transformational leaders, because transformation needs so much more about connection.
Yes.
And that's why I think there's some amazing skills there, and they are brilliant. And so, I think that's fantastic. I think to be brilliant, realize you do have these innate things. How can you leverage those things, leverage the strengths you've got and hire for the stuff you don't? That's the thing I like to do. Hey, look, we were talking about leaders and how you need to travel as a leader. So if you and I got in the TARDIS, in the time machine, like we're watching Doctor Who or something, we went back in time and we came across 15-year-old Kristal,
Yeah.
what words of wisdom would you have for 15-year-old Kristal?
So I would say these words are kind of difficult. Um, I tended to always be a bit of a leader. There's a reason I was willing to take on the name Bossy Girl. But the truth that I would share with myself is probably a truth I would share with every leader, male, female. The truth is that as a leader, it's not about you. It's not about you. And especially as women, we spend so much time trying to figure out how to be assertive and how to lead in the workplace. Sometimes we get lost in the truth that it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about the mission and it's about our people. And if we can really embrace that and learn how to love the choice, the action, not the emotion, but the action, then we will be most successful. And it will actually solve a lot of the issues that we have where we feel like people don't like us because we're assertive, because we're pushing the mission forward, and it's not what's expected. We're not being polite. We're not playing by the rules and being ladylike. But what happens is if you can learn that it's not about you, you change the scene and you flip the tables, and now you will achieve everything you set forward to do.
Fantastic. And I'm pretty much certain that you'd also tell 15-year-old Kristal to definitely go hard on GameStop. You know, if GameStop was there early on, you would definitely be going for it and run that right up.
Hey, I wish I could tell 40-year-old Kristal that.
Well, when she gets to 40, you can remind yourself to tell her that, right? So, you know, you can do that back then.
Oh my, she's there.
That's fantastic. I can pick you up on just one more thing you talked about then, you know, realizing it's about other people. Do you think sometimes women, when they're in a leader role, are so focused on either competing with men or proving the fact that they can do it, that sometimes they lose sight of the fact that actually they're there, it's about the other, it's about the mission and about their people? Do you think that sometimes women do get caught up in that trap?
I do think that we do at times. And there's a couple things that happen is one, we oftentimes believe that the way that we can be successful is watching others who have been successful. Oftentimes those people that have gone before us are men. So we try to become who they are in so many different ways, and what it leads to, it's a really poor version of yourself because you're never going to be able to be someone else. So you have to start with you and owning who you are and being okay with that. So I absolutely think we get caught up in that, and I think that if we did less of that and we're willing, and even the name of Bossy Girl, one of the reasons it's so important to me is there's even a movement against the word bossy, and it's called ban bossy. And I just really believe the best way to move forward is to own it and just be authentically you. And if it's bossy, that's okay. How do you use it effectively?
Yeah. And your bossy is around, you know, around that area of courage and authenticity, and the values you have really are what I loved about it. And certainly when I met you the first time, it was just came across to me like that. It just made total congruence, you know, when I met you before I knew the name. So it made complete sense to me. And it is 100% authentic, and it is about the courage and the love and the authenticity. That's what makes so much sense. Hey, Kristal, so what's the easiest way for people to find out more about Bossy Girl or BGL?
Sure. I would absolutely encourage you to start with going to bossygirl.org, and you're more than welcome to email me. I would love to come to your organization, do keynote addresses, or work to improve your culture. If your work life right now is not great, give me a call, shoot me an email. My email address is Kristal, Kristal, @ bossygirl.org.
Fantastic, Kristal. So awesome to have you on the show. Really looking forward to our feedback from people regarding this one, and just so cool you made the time for us between Australia and Pennsylvania. Awesome. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Rob. It was my honor.
Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode of the It's All Possible podcast. Please subscribe and rate the podcast you listen to so we can continue to serve you and inspire others. Remember, connect to us on all the social media channels. The It's All Possible podcast is hosted by me, Rob Hartnett, and produced by the phenomena that is Finn Hartnett. Connect with us via LinkedIn, Instagram, or the link tree in the show notes.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.